Tantor Audio presents Labor Day, True Birth Stories by today's best women writers. Edited by Eleanor Henderson and Anna Solomon. Narrated by Cris Dukehart and Hilary Huber. Introduction. Expect the unexpected. Angelina and Giselle prepared their tubs. Christina Aguilera scheduled an elective C-section. Kate Middleton broke ground by asking her prince to stay in the delivery room instead of heading to the links. As choices of when, where, and how to give birth have become more numerous and more stark, American mothers are preparing for labor with one common thing in their diaper bags: birth plans. Such plans have become as ubiquitous as stretch mark creams and layettes, and as the first decision many make as parents, they're charged with meaning. What began as an expression of personal preference has quickly come to represent a declaration of our philosophies, our politics, and our identities, as mothers and as women. The story of birth in the 21st century is undeniably different from the one it was 30 years ago, when what to expect when you're expecting first empowered mothers to be with essential guidance through the 40 weeks of pregnancy. Since then, thousands of new books and documentaries and articles and blogs have sought to prepare women for the final push of pregnancy, their Labor Day. A vast and diverse industry has grown up around birth in the United States, from boutique labor and delivery suites that offer mani-pedis and vaginal rejuvenation therapies, to alternative birthing centers that provide the chance to labor without drugs or medical intervention. A generation ago, many of our mothers went into the hospital with a comb and nightgown. We go in armed with our birthing ball and pump, our iPod loaded with rainforest sounds. They took a Lamaze class, maybe. We take classes in breastfeeding and infant care and prenatal yoga, where we do our Kegel exercises in obedient unison. As often as not, they expected to birth on their backs, with their husbands cheering them on from the hallway or the nearest bar. We, on the other hand, are encouraged by doctors and co-workers, family and friends to tackle our labors as we might a new job, to make detailed birth plans, to hire doulas who will advocate for these plans, to train our partners as our coaches and cord cutters. Oh, and do we want that cord to be cut right away or after it has stopped pulsing? Do we want eye ointment administered? Do we want to delay the first bath? With these choices comes information, a tidal wave of statistics and warnings, often contradictory, sometimes frightening, always addictive. On the one hand, many doctors won't allow patients to attempt a vaginal birth after having had a C-section, VBAC, and warn that going beyond 41 weeks or having a larger baby endangers our babies and us. On the other hand, natural birth advocates warn that epidurals will lead to Pitocin, which will lead to other interventions, that C-sections cause infection, and that episiotomies are akin to genital mutilation. Today, many Western women are told they can have babies well into their 40s, yet anyone over 35 still falls into advanced maternal age and is encouraged to undergo extra tests, which bring added anxiety. Armed with all this information, with countless choices, with squat bars and whirlpool tubs and walking epidurals, we are meant to feel empowered. We enter a heady zone of birth preparation. Here, it seems, we can bring the uncontrollable under our control, but often our plans prove somewhere in between irrelevant and useless. Angelina never got to use that birthing tub. When her baby presented breech, she had a C-section. For the lucky few, birth goes beautifully, short, free of complication, perhaps even sublime. More commonly, our labors tackle us rather than the other way around. Our deliveries are not always as we imagined or wanted. We may be left feeling disappointed, embarrassed, having failed to meet our own and others' expectations. Too often, we mothers are guilty of perpetuating this sense of inadequacy ourselves by making a fuss about our successes, earned or not. Under such pressure, prepared to the hilt, are we really any better off than our mothers? And if not, where do we turn? To stories. In the summer of 2005, we, Eleanor Henderson and Anna Solomon, sat on the patio of the Storm Cafe in Middlebury, Vermont, overlooking Otter Creek. We'd met just days before at the Bread Loaf Writers' Conference, where we were working as waiters. That night, with 3 other new girlfriends, we were taking a break. We talked about newly minted husbands and newly minted MFAs, and, of course, about books and babies. We wanted both badly, soon. But which would come first? As it turned out, our babies beat our books down the birth canal, and for a while as we gestated, the only books at our bedsides were books about babies, what to expect when you're pregnant and in labor and beyond, what to do to soothe round ligament pain, how close your contraction should be before calling your doctor, whether you needed a bassinet or a co-sleeper, or both. Bookstores, we found, were filled with pregnancy journals and parenting Bibles, month-by-month manuals and gear guides that were little more than product catalogs. But the shelves were virtually empty of artful, entertaining, unvarnished accounts of labor and delivery. That was what we wanted, we realized. We wanted the extraordinary, the ordinary, the terrifying, the profane, and sure, the sublime too. We wanted the truth. So Eleanor sent out a missive to her friends. How did it happen for you? Did your water break? Did you get an epidural? What did it feel like? Would you do it again? The emails came in spades and in detail. Mucus plugs, episiotomies, an entire sheet of Christmas cookies thrown up into a sick pan. These were the stories she needed to hear, and, of course, the friends who were writers told the best ones. The most insightful, the most reflective. The kind that invited you right into the delivery room to take a peek over the nurse's shoulder. When Anna sent along a 4-page essay about her daughter's recent birth, comic, poignant, pea-soaked, and starring Manhattan's most eccentric OBGYN, the idea occurred to us at the same time. These stories need to be collected and shared. The time seemed ripe. Was it us, or was there a new baby bump featured in the checkout line each week? The reality TV industry produced birth story after birth story, one too many for Eleanor's queasy husband. But behind the world's fascination with airbrushed bellies and dramatized labors, we sensed a more urgent narrative forming, a conversation about the choices available to mothers in the 21st century. We watched as Why Women Still Can't Have It All became the most circulated article in the history of The Atlantic, as Time magazine made Are You Mom Enough a catchphrase, and as Mitt Romney unleashed binders full of outraged women into the Twitterverse. Ours is an era in which mothers can be CEOs, DIY homemakers, or combat soldiers with equal zeal and self-consciousness. We can be tiger mothers or attachment parents. We can argue for self-sacrifice in one breath and for selfishness in the next. We can call ourselves feminists, and we can call feminism dead. Of course, for many women across the United States, and certainly across the globe, these choices are still limited, but those of us privileged enough can do and be almost anything, including paralyzed by the sheer number of possibilities. With Labor Day, we wanted to give expression to the epic questions of parenthood, fertility, marriage, work, equality, that shape the birth experience for this new generation of mothers and mothers-to-be. To our delight, the writers we approached, poets, fiction writers, memoirists, playwrights, friends and strangers alike, delivered birth stories that do exactly that and so much more. As the essays rolled in, we laughed. We wept, we groaned in recognition and gasped with surprise. Each story brought with it new struggles and new triumphs. We found ourselves as immersed in our fellow writers' birth stories as we had been in our own. It's an elemental, almost animalistic urge, the expectant mother's hunger for birth narratives. Surely our mothers and their mothers nurtured the same craving, a craving as old as storytelling or childbirth itself. The writers featured in this anthology might even suggest that pregnancy brings the privilege of a higher emotional frequency, tuning us into the stories of other women. I felt porous, Rachel Jameson Webster writes of her pregnancy, strummed by the nerves of the earth. I could feel a friend who was hurting or rejoicing across the country. and I would call and drop into the moment mid-conversation. I felt connected to everyone I loved, especially to other women, and I felt, and still feel, awed to be a portal through which another would enter her life. Many of the conversations we drop in on in this book are in uncanny harmony with one another. Dani Shapiro, like Rachel Jameson Webster, feels surrounded by her ancestors as she gives birth. Anne Hood and Marie Myung-Ok Lee, both given Pitocin without permission, watch in exasperation as the items on their birth plans are derailed or just dismissed. Gina Zucker and Phoebe Damrosch bask in the triumphant pleasures of their post-labor meal. Mary Beth Keane and Eden Lepucki find themselves struggling postpartum, with lingering doubts and regrets about their long, intense labors. Noir Alcidier and Danzy Senna are both haunted by the feeling that their induced babies, now children, know they were born too early. Susan Burton and Claire Dederer hold the details of their birth stories close, too precious to share. Ariel Greenberg and Heidi Pittler write about the heartbreaking loss of their babies, late in pregnancy, as well as the joy of the births that followed. While we don't want to reduce them to their darkest moments, we feel it's important to note that certain details in these essays, as well as in those by Amy Herzog and Rachel Jameson Webster, might upset some new and expectant mothers. But these essays also bear witness to the extraordinary resilience of mothers and those who support them, without which the story of birth would not be complete. Other stories reflect collisions of experience and perspective. While pregnancy eases Dani Shapiro's anxiety, for Lauren Groff it brings on depression. While pushing comes as naturally as breathing to some of us, Phoebe Damrosch, Amy Brill, Anna. For others, Rachel Jameson Webster, Sarah A. Strickley, Eleanor, it requires learning to use muscles, including mental ones we didn't know we had. Joanna Rakoff and Jane Roper must disprove the male doctors who tell them they won't have the strength or stamina to push out their babies, while Anne Hood and Heidi Julavitz make transformative connections with the people who help bring their babies into the world. For Noir Alcidier, seeing her baby's face for the first time presents a disconnect with the face she's imagined. For Lan Samantha Chang, it's instant recognition. And while Eden Lepucki and Joanna Rakoff both labor in the shadow of their mother's legendary births, one a home birth, one propulsive, Dani Shapiro and Sarah Jeffers resolve that their own births mark a departure from motherhood as they've known it. And so this book is born, a cacophonous collective baby. These true stories are as varied as the women who crafted them. Here are women of diverse cultures, races, and sexual orientations. Women in the big city and women in the country. Here are women intent on giving birth naturally, and others begging for epidurals. Women who pushed for hours and women whose labors were over practically before they'd started. Women giving birth to twins and to 10-pound babies. Here are women giving birth at home, in hospitals, in tubs, on the bathroom floor, and yes, in the car. Here are women facing agonizing complications and loss. Infertility, miscarriage, stillbirth. Here are women reveling in labor, fearing labor, defeated by labor, fulfilled by it, and always amazed by it. These stories bear no moral, espouse no single method, or dismiss any other. They simply do what great stories do best. Tell one particular experience so vividly that any listener can find herself in it. In Labor Day, true birth stories by today's best women writers, we put aside our birth plans. We don't prepare, but reflect. We remember, regret, rejoice, and reveal. We tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. What wasn't washed away by the amnesia of oxytocin, anyway. As distinct as these 30 truths are, they are bound by the common thread of the most universal experience there is, the oldest art in the world. We hope these essays reach you with the same simple but profound sense of anticipation and celebration in which they were conceived, by a group of women sitting around a table. We might have been any women, at any time in history, sitting around a table or a quilt or a fire, dreaming about babies, telling our own stories and discovering ourselves in one another's. Eleanor Henderson and Anna Solomon. April 2014. What I'm Trying to Say by Anna Solomon. Contractions started around 5 on Friday afternoon. They were mild at first, mild enough that I doubted they were real. I did walk around our neighborhood, thinking, am I having contractions? When Mike got home, we rented a movie and bought a box of brownie mix. And after dinner, what did we eat? I remember only the brownies. My wanting them. I mixed and baked the brownies. Later, I would wonder, what was I thinking, making brownies? But for a while then, they still tasted good to me, and I wasn't in so much pain that I couldn't enjoy the movie too, though I don't remember what it was now, and I don't think we finished watching it. The contractions got stronger, then stayed the same through the night. Somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes apart, varying in length. I couldn't sleep, and by morning I decided I needed an epidural. I'd been unsure about the epidural question. I thought I would see what it was like, that if I could do it without, I'd rather, but that I wouldn't go crazy about it. Now I thought, I can't do it without, I need to sleep. That was my main priority, to rest, which people had told me the epidural let you do. So we called Dr. Yang, who said she doubted I was in labor, but that sure, I could meet her at her office at 9. A word about Dr. Yang, whom other patients sometimes refer to as the Yankster, whom my sister-in-law warned me was a little intense and whom I generally just call my crazy Chinese doctor. She is temperamentally similar in some ways to the Chinese grocer in our corner bodega, except that instead of yelling at me, "This is daikon," when I called one night in my 7th month, terrified by the white, puffy flesh suddenly bulging from the part of my stomach where I imagined my baby's head to be, she yelled, "That is your colon, Anna! It's coming through the tissue. It's just abdominal separation. You have to relax." We made the trip from Brooklyn to Tribeca, our still shiny labor ball stowed in the back seat. It was Saturday, the bridge mercifully empty. At Dr. Yang's office, we were let in by a group of Chinese construction workers, busy affixing a new door. Dr. Yang, the leader explained, would be back to meet us. She'd had to go to the hardware store for a tool. Dr. Yang is a solo practitioner, I should explain, which in her case means not only that she delivers every baby of every patient, but also oversees every hinge being fitted to her doors. We went into a room at the back and waited. I got very angry waiting. I'd been angry at Dr. Yang before, many times, but now I felt angry in the way a laboring woman feels angry. She'd abandoned me, I decided. And now, what did this portend about my labor and delivery? Would she leave as the baby was coming out to go buy a box of nails? Dr. Yang arrived some 10 minutes later. "Okay, Anna, let's see. Oh, I can see just looking at you. You're not in labor." Of course, the second she walked in the room, my contractions had diminished. After her examination, she declared, "See? You are only 50% effaced, and barely dilated, even a centimeter." I started to cry, but "I'm exhausted," I said. I did not say I want an epidural because I knew now how stupid and impossible that idea was. I can't keep going. "My guess is you'll go into labor in the next day or 2. "But this is labor," I told her. "Well," she said, "look, Anna, you have a very strong mind. I know this about you. You can make many things happen with your mind." "You're saying this is all in my head?" "What I am trying to say," this was Dr. Yang's favorite phrase, "listen. You have a very strong mind. In China, this is a very prized attribute. I can lower my blood pressure by 10 points just thinking about it. In China, people can move cups just looking at them. What I'm trying to say..." As she spoke, I was vaguely aware, and disappointed and ashamed, that I wasn't in as much pain as I'd been earlier. "What I am trying to say is you're feeling your pain at a 10. And I want you to feel it at a 4. "But I need to sleep," I said, still crying. "Yes, exactly. You'll need to rest. Sometimes that brings a labor on itself." "But I can't sleep," I said. "It's too painful." "And I am in labor," I wanted to add, but didn't. Looking back now, my wrestlings with Dr. Yang, often in my head, mostly seemed like a waste of energy. Also a symptom of my privilege. That first pregnancy. It had been so easy. We'd conceived on our first try, there had been no complications. My expectation, my assumption, was that all the important things, a beating heart, blood flow, progesterone, amniotic fluid, etc., would be just fine. Now, when I think of all that must happen in order for an embryo to be put together, to grow and thrive and be born into the world a healthy, sentient human being, my breath catches in awe and fear. I like to think that Dr. Yang, for all her eccentricities, gets that too. The miracle. And that's why she has little patience for the small stuff. "Here, listen. I want you to go home. Take an Ambien. I write you out a prescription. Take the hottest bath you can stand. Drink a glass of wine. Relax." "I thought pregnant women aren't supposed to take hot baths," I said. "Baloney," Dr. Yang said, as she had about many other myths I'd brought up during our visits. "The baby is all there. She not bothered by the heat." I explained to Dr. Yang that the one time I'd taken Ambien, 2 nights before my wedding, I'd awakened hours later on the bathroom floor. I hadn't even made it to the bed. "Then take half," she cried, and ushered us out. I felt desperate on the way home. The next day or two? But at home I followed Dr. Yang's directions, except for the wine, which I thought would make me throw up. After the bath, I got into bed. It was about 11 a.m. now, and for the next couple of hours I managed to sleep between, though not during, contractions. It was a vague, hazy sleep, the 4 and 5 minute snatches building on one another. When I woke up and went to the bathroom, I had blood in my underwear. Dr. Yang had said, "When you're in labor, you'll have blood. You'll have all sorts of things coming out of you." Hooray! It makes me flinch now, my unthinking optimism. Between this first labor and the birth of my second child, I had 3 miscarriages, all washed in blood. My friends had miscarriages too. A number of them had 3, like me. Others gave birth to dead babies or to very sick babies. I lost my innocence, so when I went into labor the second time, if I had seen blood, I think I would have burst into tears. Instead, my water broke, clear and warm and conveniently on our all-weather deck. Mike and I looked at each other and started to laugh. I don't know if I believed in God, but it was the sort of moment where I'm tempted to. We were living in Providence, Rhode Island by then, far from Dr. Yang, but as I readied the hospital bag, I could hear her voice, reprimanding and encouraging me. "Of course that's your amniotic fluid, Anna. Don't forget the towel." It was about 2 now. From there, the contractions got steadily stronger. I rested my forearms on the ball, my knees on the floor. Mike pushing my hip bones together as we learned in class. Nothing made it less painful. But at least we were doing something, and I couldn't not be on my knees. Between contractions, I closed my eyes and rested. That was what I did best, I think, during my labor. Really rested between contractions. Not fearing the next one, but really sinking into the relief of those moments. This better be labor, I think I said a few times, and around 5 I said, "We have to go to the hospital. I don't care if Dr. Yang laughs and sends us back. We're going." Mike called Dr. Yang. Dr. Yang loves Mike, and she said, "Well, Mike, if you really think it's different from this morning, I'll meet you at the hospital. I have another patient already there." The car ride was the worst part by far. It took us about 50 minutes, across the bridge. Which one did Mike take? Through Lower Manhattan, up the West Side Highway, which is not a highway at all, but a misnamed series of traffic lights that seemed to be red, every one, the whole way. I was, as Mike told me later, mooing like a cow. I was grabbing at the doors, writhing to the floor. It was awful. When I was pregnant with our second child, Mike and I went for 2 contemplative childbirth preparation sessions with the warmest, loveliest doula, birth instructor, massage therapist, yoga teacher I've ever met. I learned to visualize my uterus like a jellyfish, pulsating, dancing, doing the work it needed to do. I learned to think of each contraction as an opening, my cervix a sea anemone offering up its colorful tendrils, a releasing sort of embrace. I went from being dilated 3 centimeters to 10 in less than 30 minutes, not enough time for the epidural I vaguely asked for, and yet somehow, though the pain filled me utterly because I had a new way of thinking about it this time, the labor wasn't being done to my body was doing it. I managed to feel centered, not the battered cow, but the undulating grass, the sky above, a wave out at sea. The only wave. Which is, I suppose, what Dr. Yang meant when she told me to feel my pain at a 4 instead of a 10. She meant I could think my way to a different relationship with the pain. So she was right after all, as she often was. But I was younger then, less focused, unable to listen, and she sounded so angry. In the lobby, the triage nurse didn't ask what we were doing there, but sent us up to labor and delivery. Dr. Yang was still with the other patients, so a resident examined me. I remember looking at her face, staring, willing her, thinking if she tells me I'm only 2 centimeters dilated, I will die. I will die. I really will. Right here, I will die. But I wasn't. I was 8 centimeters dilated, entering transition, as she put it. Hooray, I thought. I'm in labor. Then I thought, and shouted, I want an epidural now! In the delivery room, the nurse told me Dr. Yang would be there soon, and that she had to get an IV in me to deliver fluid so they could do the epidural. But where's the epidural? I asked. Anesthesiology's been backed up all day, I heard her say. She couldn't have said this to me, right? Wouldn't that have been too cruel? What? What? It's okay, here, said the nurse, trying to get the IV in. But I was so dehydrated, the first vein she tried disappeared, and then she burst the vein in my left hand, which would be bruised for weeks, and then she couldn't get it into my right hand. Finally, she got it into my right arm. At some point in all this, I said, I have to pee. I have to go to the bathroom. And she said, you just go now, just go. And I did. I peed all over myself. It was the first time I'd peed all over myself since I was a kid, I guess. I was just like a damn baby. I remember hearing her say at some point during this, we have pushing! And I realized I was pushing. She said, I think she's fully dilated. And I said, where is Dr. Yang? And soon Dr. Yang was there, in a brightly flowered velour dress with pink lipstick to match. And she said something to me. She actually said this, about how the residents often overestimate how dilated women are. And I thought, fuck you. Where is my epidural? Am I shitting myself? Oh shit, I might be shitting myself. And the nurse said, she's fully dilated. I really think so. And Dr. Yang checked me out and didn't confirm or not confirm this, but she said to me, Anna, if it feels better to push, you can push. 2.5 years later, a couple weeks after my second miscarriage, I stood up from a furniture store's white couch and started hemorrhaging. I went straight to Dr. Yang, telling her I'd just filled a toilet with blood, and she said, you'll know, Anna, even a drop of blood can look like it fills a toilet. Again, I thought, fuck you. Every nerve in my body filled with rage. If I'd had a plate, I would have thrown it. Instead, I pulled down my dark jeans, shaking, and she said, oh. Then, after she finished pulling a clot out of me, she told me she'd be right back, ran downstairs to her sub-office apartment, and gave me one of her skirts to wear on the subway ride home. I'd already been pushing, but I kept at it, and it did feel better. It felt great. I mean, it hurt like hell, but it was something to do. Not just enduring the waves of pain, but pushing. I was grunting insanely, making disgusting noises. Mike was holding one leg, Dr. Yang the other. And on her face, I remember, was total, utter joy. I said, wait, am I pushing out the baby? I really thought until that point that I was pushing because it felt better. Yes, she cried. Here.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?